Okay, so one thing you're gonna learn about me, always I start with brows, always, and that was taught to me. So if you love the idea, it will, I promise you will grow into it. Start with your brows, and I work from the top to the bottom. So it would be from the brow line all the way to the lash line. Okay, so it's completely backwards from what you've ever probably been taught or learned, but it is great because when you get to the point, whatever color you're doing, it doesn't matter, there's fallout in eyeshadow. So the fallout will always kind of get on your clean foundation. The other part is I put my foundation last, because if you get that fallout, you have to swipe it, you get muddy. Then you have to reapply. So this is why I have this method to my madness, okay? It's not crazy, I promise. And I start with, you know, because I'm using the paint pot that I mentioned, cream to powder, it's going to be my primary base. It's going to be my color underneath my brow bone, and it's going to be my lid color. I'm just really going to work creases in. So with a fluffy brush, and this one's going to be fluffier than the one I use for the outer corner, because that one's going to be denser, I'm going to use my soft brown matte here. I'm just going to spin my brush, and the way you hold your brush matters. So if you want a lot of color, get close. If you want it to be really natural, get far away from your brush hair. We call this the ferrule. So how you hold your ferrule is how you're going to deposit color. So in this look, like I said, my lip is the bold, it's kind of the focus. So really, I'm going to hold my ferrule kind of low end, and I'm going to use it, and I'm going to start kind of in this area, because I'm going to start building some shadow. So on the outer part of my eye, and then I will kind of just blend it out. So I'm kind of creating that outer crease because I'm going to create a tighter lower crease on the outside corner. So I'm going to start there. We'll come back. All right, so now you see both eyes have like my starter crease, and notice it's kind of a brown terracotta. And the whole purpose of using the different variations of brown is because you'll see the difference. If you use the same variations of undertones, this one being more of a terracotta, so it has like an orangey tone, versus something that's more kind of ashy, and then something that's more, and I know it's hard to see color if your eye is not trained, but you know, this is how you create kind of that blend out look. And this one has a little bit more of a, I'd say a purple plum, and it's hard to see, but they are different brown variations of color. Now I'm going to get that kind of denser, fluffier brush, and I'm going to start with this lighter first. Right underneath, I'm going to start kind of, and I don't have color here, but I'm just kind of showing you the placement right underneath that kind of broader stroke for my crease. I'm going to get a little denser. I'm going to go right underneath into that crease. Now really going in the crease where this is kind of creating an outer crease. Now I'm really going into my natural crease, and I'm going to start with the lighter one first, and then I'm going to go darker with this one with a denser kind of brush, and really kind of get in there to make it look smoky. So I'm going to show you the strokes, and then I'm going to get into it so you can kind of see the payoff. So going in, this kind of hugging what I put, and notice that I kind of staying in this little outer area as opposed to getting kind of all over towards the brow. You can kind of already see the smokiness that's taking effect, and kind of if this was all the same variation of undertone, it would look muddy. You wouldn't even see a difference. That's why it's important to look at the variation. And see, you can see on my little brow that I haven't tweezed. But what I love about that paint pot is it kind of plasters it down. Because we're up and close, you're going to see it. No one else will. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to use the darker brown, the one that looks plum, with the denser kind of fluffy. It's not as fluffy. It's denser and almost looks like has a point, okay? I know it almost seems like they're all the same. And you don't have to do it. If you have the skill to use one brush and pay it off, then go. And the one thing I want to mention is don't be afraid to get kind of messy. Like, go beyond your actual natural lash line. That's the other reason why I like to start with eyes first. Get messy, because what we're going to do is at the end, we're going to swipe it, and it's going to be like a nice clean swipe, and we'll be able to clean it all up. I don't know why I have glitter around here, but anywho. So here we go. You can see my kind of terracotta. You can see me getting a little warmer. And here's where I'm really going to get warm. Now this placement is not as far, not as high, because I do want to have kind of like that cat eye. Because I'm going for like the boss bitch look. Okay. So, because I am one. And that look is going to be what I need for that lip. So everything needs to, you know, complement each other, but like make it work. So here I am getting a little denser with that deeper brown. Again, this is a semi-smoky look. See, I'm gonna get messy on over here on purpose, just because I want you guys to see that it doesn't matter, because at the end, we're gonna clean it all up. You can use a face wipe or a Q-tip, and you can clean it all up. It actually looks like an amazing shade. So let me do it on the other side. See the difference so far? Right now it's hard to tell until I get that winged outliner on. Okay, so here is the eye on the lid before I add the liner. And see, it looks messy, and that's okay, because it's gonna look amazing once we clean it up, but I purposely did that because I want you to see. Now, I don't feel as confident teaching an eyeliner yet, so I don't wanna mess up my look, because I'm gonna have to start all over. But what I will do is I'll explain how I start winged outliner. And now what I'm used to doing and what I'm gonna do for this look is I typically will do I use half of the eye for winged outliner. So just to break it up for you, and this pen does it all. I love it. Well, guide it and it will do it all. So I always start, I'm not gonna do it here because I have to master this on my own first, teaching. I always start kind of where the eye shape, you know, just kind of the corner of the eye. I start there with the first stroke. Make sure that stroke is straight. Then from that stroke, you're gonna take from the very end of that stroke to the middle of the eye. You're gonna see lots of gapping in between. But that second stroke also equally needs to be straight to where you want it. I typically go to the middle of the eye. And then what you do is you fill in kind of in between those two strokes to make it look like one solid line. So I will come back, but I have to go get up and close and personal to do it. But like I said, future ones, I'll teach you how to do a winged outliner. Okay, here's what I will do. So you see my two strokes, the one I just described. So the first one, then from that tip, it's the second one to the middle of the eye where I want the placement. Now I'm just gonna take my liner and fill it all in. All right. They don't call me Mama on Fleek for no reason. I know I gave myself that name, but this is why. That's filling in two strokes, vamonos. Now, before you go on to the other eye, this tip has makeup. Take it off. Don't go in this side with something so muddy, because then it won't look as perfection as that. Okay, you're welcome. Free advice. Okay, so I don't have a B-reel, but I know about the B-reel, so we're gonna B-reel here, okay? So notice this one's on point. That's the one I showed you. I did this one, and I'm already seeing, because that was one thing when we did makeup, is pictures don't lie, video doesn't lie. Take a look. So here's where I see I'm gonna have to clean this one up quite a bit. So first, it's when I do swipe, I'm gonna clean this tail up. It's longer, if you notice, than this tail, okay? So I'm gonna perfect it when I swipe. And then I also notice, what was the other thing? I mean, right here, it's bothering me. Just because, you know, I'm a perfectionist, but I know everybody doesn't have to be. But right here, it's just not quite straight. So I'm gonna straighten that out with the pen. Okay, so I fixed it. And it's okay for now. It's still bothering me, but the tail is bothering me the most. So now I'm going to clean up. So typically you can grab a facial wipe and just swipe one clean stroke. You'll see it like look like you like did this amazing, you know, fade out. Comes from a wipe. But I stopped buying wipes because I was getting lazy about my skincare. So I'm just going to use my eye cream from Kiehl's, and I'm just going to put a little here, and I'm going to use a Q-tip because maybe that's more practical for people. Who knows? take a little bit of eye cream, don't take a ton. And I'm going to, okay, maybe I need more than that. Don't get scared, but you need to do it in one stroke. This is just harder when you're teaching. Okay. Yeah, so you can see kind of the dropout because I don't have my concealer. Everything will be evened out. But let's do the other side. Just don't want to mess it up for my... This is not as easy as it looks, y'all. And I'm gonna take care of the tail off camera because it needs to be perfect to be back. And always listen to some really good music when you're getting ready. I can't, obviously, because if I don't use the music on Instagram, then they send you some crazy stuff. Anywho, so that always rocks out the house. So now I'm gonna work on my concealer. Actually, I need to put mascara on my top lashes, so I'll do that in just a little bit, but I'll start my concealer. Charlotte Tilbury, love this one because I am, 40 something. Looks super white, bear with. And I'm just not that person that's getting into highlight and stuff like that. I maybe will one day, probably, because I need to get into it. But usually I just kind of take this and I blend it, where it needs to be blended in this area. And I always kind of go downward, always use a brush. I'm a big fan at kind of bouncing around your concealer as opposed to pulling the skin, especially when you think about how delicate and thin our under eye skin is, especially if you don't have a good skincare regimen. I really don't. I'm getting there. I used to. Now that I have more time, I'm getting back into it. And this brush is a little bit more synthetic. I'm not the biggest paddle type of brush fan. I like a rounder kind of, more of a cone type brush. It's easier to kind of get into these little areas, whatever's left of my brush, kind of get over through my nose. One day I will try the whole highlight in those special places, like everybody is like dotted everywhere. I'll get into that. It's just trying to teach and do it how I normally do. See if anybody is into it. Even this seems to take forever. It takes a longer time to teach back. So like I said, bear with. You can already kind of see my redness going away. A lot of my freckles kind of covering up. I'm not the biggest fan at covering all my freckles. There are ones that are pretty big now with the sun that look better when I can even out my skin. So I do. But I do like a little bit of freckles. And then I will set it with my Laura Mercier translucent powder. Like I mentioned, I like a fluffy brush to kind of set it. I don't want creasing, so I use a lot of oil, and especially because I'm going to film, it really does take away from the shine. It was one thing when I did HD makeup, even on men, taking away shine for film is super important. Kind of these little pockets of creasing as well. You can see it all in HD. All right, concealer's on. Now I'll take just a dense brush and kind of smoke it out there, add some mascara on the top, and then on the bottom lashes, I'm just gonna do the center. So I'll come back and I'll show you that, because when you look at the eye, you just look at the center. Okay, so I put my mascara on the top lashes, and so what I'm doing next, just because I wanna walk you through it and I may not show it, because I'll spare you the open mouth applying stuff. Giovanni, you're welcome. My sister, she loves when I do that. Okay, so here are the things I'm going to do next, and I still have not applied my foundation. So